gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this presentation. Today I will have the pleasure to be hearing from Ms. Aurore DUPIN, a second-year PhD student in archaeology, working within the NSHE. Ms. Aurore DUPIN is working on the characterization of forestry logging in the Franche-Comté region since the 18th century. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome the presenter to deliver her work. Ms. DUPIN, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, the goal of my thesis is to characterize the production of food in Franche-Comté since the 15th century. So there is two parts in my thesis. The first one is about the firewood production, and the second part is about the lumber production. But for the moment, I studied only the firewood production because it's a huge subject, and I hope I will be able to study the lumber production during my third year. So for this exposé, I will present the results for the firewood production in Franche-Comté. Practically, what's a charcoal kiln? A charcoal kiln is a platform where the coal cutter will produce charcoal from wood. And the framework of the charcoal kiln depends on two things. The first one is the region of production, and the second one is the know-how of the coal cutter. Here it's a structure of a charcoal kiln in use in our region, and here it's the framework of the charcoal kiln below the earth, because we have to cover the charcoal kiln with earth before it burns. The study area for my thesis is Forest of Chailluz, which is located north of Besançon, here. And we chose this forest because some archives prove that lumbers of building of Besançon came from this forest, and because lots of archaeological structures were found in this forest. So, I'm sure you've never seen a forest like this, but it is. It's the forest of Chailluz. In fact, it's a particular view, a particular picture from an aerial prospection, which allows to obtain the microtopography below the canopy, so below leaves and branches. With this prospection, we were able to identify 1,000 charcoal kilns in the forest of Chailluz. So one red point and one yellow point is a charcoal kiln. From the field, we can identify a platform which were used for the production of charcoal because of some remains. A platform is a circular area and a flat area, and sometimes it has a wall like this when the landscape is very steep. Often the charcoal kiln is visible on the picture of the aerial prospection, but it's not so obvious in the forest because the landscape is very flat like this, or especially when it's covered by snow. So in this situation, we have to find another way to identify these charcoal kilns. So to confirm the presence of the charcoal kiln, we looked for charcoal remains in the soil, and the color of the soils is a very good indicator of the presence of charcoal in the platform. For example, here we have soil inside the platform and outside the platform. For the analysis of the charcoal kilns in the forest of Chailluz, we studied only two platforms for the moment in order to develop a protocol for the retrieval of charcoal kilns in the forest. These two platforms are located on the slope of the forest, and here we can see a close-up of this area. Magnetic susceptibility offers to identify where the soil has been burnt. Thus, we first called the platform and measured this susceptibility in the pit, like this, and on the mud, to reveal phases of utilization of the platform. So here are the results of this magnetic susceptibility for the platform CH29. On the left-hand side, we can observe the results on the surface of the platform, and on the right-hand side, the results in depth of the platform. The magnetic susceptibility allows us to identify the diameter of the platform and so the volume of wood which were used for the charcoal kiln. Unfortunately, the magnetic susceptibility was not able to identify phases of utilization of the platform, but the charcoal concentration were. It's represented here in the shades of pink. So we have two levels of utilization of the platform for the platform CH29. In a second time, we dated some charcoal kilns in the forest of Chailluz, and the statistical analysis allows to identify four main periods of utilization of the charcoal kilns in Chailluz. And the platform CH29 dated from the late 18th century. Finally, I identify the species of the charcoal fragments of these two platforms. This analysis is possible because anatomical characteristics of charcoal are preserved. And this identification is possible with the use of an episcopic light microscope like this. Here it's charcoal that we can see with this microscope. The results of this analysis show that the landscape was more open than nowadays, because some Heliophilus species were identified in the soil, like palm fruit. And to confirm these results, I actually analyzed more charcoal kilns of the forest of Chailluz. And if you're interested, I will present the future results during a symposium in September in Fribourg.
So thank you, Aurore, for the interesting talk. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the Q&A session. So any questions, please?
I still don't understand exactly how the charcoal kilns are built. So what I understand is they get
like a volcano.
they make a pyramid type of a volcano shape with sticks. They cover it with soil, and there's a hole in the top.
Yes.
And they have a fire from the inside.
Yes.
How do they make the fire in the inside? How do they keep it going?
Oh, it's.
I'd imagine it would go out because there wouldn't be enough air and etc. How long does all this take?
How long?
Yeah.
So it's not the real size. The real size of the charcoal kiln is like this. So it's burned during sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks. And the first question was,
how do they start the fire?
with another fire just next to the charcoal kiln.
Okay.
We take charcoal, in
Okay.
fact, and we put in the charcoal kiln, because there is here there is a chimney. Yes. So we put the charcoal in the chimney, and the fire starts on the feet of the charcoal kiln. But there is another framework which is possible in the south of France, for example. It's not like this. In fact, we core the soil and we put the wood in the core, and we cover with earth. We have 2 types of charcoal kiln. But in our region, it's like this.
So after a week or 2, the fire manages to burn all of the wood, the inside and the outside.
Yes.
I was wondering about the purpose of your study. Is it to know better about the past and the way people were living, or about, as you said, the forest apparently has been changing? And is there finally an application for today?
No, there is not application. It's just because we have a loss of information about the production of wood in Franche-Comté, and we have the opportunity of this thesis because of this prospection, where we can identify lots of charcoal kiln.
Okay, it's good because I was wondering why you had like blue, red, and yellow dots on that map.
Yes, because this picture, so it shows the macro topography of the landscape. So if we close up to an area, we can observe circular area which is characteristic of charcoal kiln, and we have to go on the field to check if it's charcoal kiln.
So white, blue, yellow, and red.
Because red is because charcoal kiln. Yellow one are the charcoal kiln which were dated, and the blue one are the lime kiln. It's not charcoal kiln. It was for another thesis. That's why there is the blue one.
I have a question. Why was charcoal production so important over these five centuries that you've been studying, from the 15th to the 20th? And a second part of the question: have you seen an evolution, and in what way and why? If you can explain it. I don't know if you've got that far in your study.
Okay. What was the first question? I'm sorry.
Why was charcoal production so important? Because you said there were hundreds of charcoal.
Okay. There was a huge production of charcoal during the time because there are lots of gold for this charcoal. There is for industry. They use for industry, for fire in house. We don't have. They don't have. Central gas, something like that. So they need charcoal for lots of application. And the second question was:
have you noticed an evolution
Yes.
over in the use of this charcoal from the 15th to the 20th century?
So not an evolution with the use, but with the species of the charcoal, which was used for, which was produced in this charcoal kiln. For example, this one. So this is the platform CH29 in depth and in the surface. So nowadays and in the time, maybe in the 18th century. And what we can see, not only in this one, but okay, I have another one much more explicit. But we can see that for this one we used on beam because at this time there is on beam on the site. But with time the forest has changed, so they use other species. But the goal of the charcoal was the same for industry and for fire in house.
Thank you.
I have a question. Which kind of wood you use to make charcoal kiln?
It depends on the forest.
Yes, but I mean you use sweat wood or dry wood, because as I know that my parents made this kind of cooking in the past, and they made a big hole, and then to cut the wood and use the sweat wood, put the dry wood under and put
Usually when they can, they use dry wood because the fire is more controlled when it's dry. But if they don't have the choice, they have to use wet wood.
But I think that the dry wood you burn very quick, and
That doesn't matter the time to burn. In fact, if the computer is a good one, and the framework is very correct, the fire will not change between dry wood or sweat wood. But it's easier to control the fire when the wood is dry.
So maybe I have a question for you too. Why have you so few dating charcoal kilns? Is it because you don't have enough time for that?
It's because it's an expensive method. So, for example, to date one charcoal, it costs 800 euros. So I don't have enough money to for example, 20 days. We would like to have 20 days, but we can't.
You need a sponsor. So,
Do you have to finance this yourself?
Sorry?
Do you have to finance this project yourself?
Yes. With my, I have not with my money, but I have money from my laboratory. But I have a budget, and I have to respect it. For a year, I have 3,000 euros. So.
But how can you be sure that your results, your findings are representative if you've only studied 2 kilns? I mean, how can you validate your findings?
I have more than 2 platforms, as you see. Okay, you can see here. line is a date.
Oh.
I have, for the moment, I have 25 dates, and I will have 30 dates more in next month.
Any other questions?
I have one more. You said that you hope to study the lumber production, timber production, I think, yes, in the area, in the Franche-Comté. Do you have any idea of what you might find?
Yes, in fact, it's complicated. The lumber production, we sampled some architectural structure, but for the moment I don't have enough time to study it. But we will study we'll study the species, of course, to compare with the firewood, and the diameter used for the lumber to compare also with the firewood production, because I will measure the diameter used for the firewood production also. But for the moment, I didn't do it.
Have you ever tried yourself to make a charcoal kiln?
Yes.
How did it work?
Not correctly. Not correctly, but okay. I will try again. Maybe this winter.
So it's a difficult skill.
Yes, it's very difficult to control all the elements. We have to control the fire, the wind, lots of things.
So at the time, there were certain people responsible for this. That was their job. I mean, it wasn't families who went out and built the kilns. There were certain people whose job it was to do this. Is that what you're saying?
It was, I'm not sure to understand the
Well,
question,
my
but
question is, were there people whose job it was to create these kilns, and they were responsible for keeping them working properly and everything, maybe cleaning them if they had to, I don't know. Or was it actually the families who could go out and have their own kiln?
in fact, it's a job of generation. All the generation, all the family works on the charcoal kiln, because it's a huge work. It's difficult work. So children and wife and sometimes cousins or aunts all work on the charcoal kilns. So sometimes they live in the forest to produce charcoal. They were like marginal, something like that.
So did they then sell the charcoal to
Yes.
people?
The wealthier families.
As you said, Aurore depends on the wood forest. Which will give us better wood to use this cover?
What's the best type of wood?
Yes, to get the energy of
Okay. So they use dry wood. Okay. And for the species, it's better to use species like
Shed?
oak. Thanks. Oak, and the worst wood for this for the charcoal kilns are the coniferous. Conifers.
Why? Why do you say worse?
Because of the structure of the wood. I show this here. This is the coniferous wood. This is the other one, and this characteristic, this hole, something like that, permits to the wind to pass easier in the wood and to consume the wood easier than in this situation.
In order to get wood quality